Hello there, random smart person on the internet. In a recent video, I covered the 4 inner planets of our solar system. While they are cool because we live on them, the most majestic looking planets have to be the outer planets of our solar system. Compared to Earth, some of the planets are huge. The largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter, has a diameter of 11 times of Earth's diameter. Jupiter's mass is more than 300 times that of Earth's mass. If you were to put Earth next to Jupiter, Earth would look like a tiny chihuahua next to an enormous Great Dane. If Earth were the height of an average person, Jupiter would be taller than a 6-story building. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are known as the outer planets. The 4 outer planets are made up of almost entirely gases. Because they are so large, they are called gas giants. Uranus and Neptune are also sometimes classified as ice giants as well. Because these giants have so much mass, they exert a much stronger gravitational force than the terrestrial planets. The strong gravity keeps the giant planets' gases from escaping, so they have a deep atmosphere. The composition of their atmospheres is similar to the gases of the sun. They are about 75% hydrogen, 24% helium, and 1% other elements. None of the giant planets have solid surfaces. If you could parachute into Jupiter's atmosphere, you would sink into denser and denser gases. You would be crushed by the enormous pressure long before you reach the core of the planet. The outer planets are thought to have partly, if not completely, solid cores comprised of rock, ice, frozen carbon dioxide, and other compounds. Each of these cores may be several times that of the mass of Earth. But they are buried so deep inside the planets that it's hard to find out much about them. Our first stop on our journey to the outer planets is Jupiter, named after the king of the Roman gods. Jupiter is the most massive planet in the solar system. It is huge. It is 43,000 miles in radius and twice as massive as all the other planets combined. It is 11 Earths wide, more than 1,000 Earths can fit inside of it. Like all of the outer planets, Jupiter has a thick atmosphere made up of mainly hydrogen and helium. Despite being the largest of all the planets, it rotates the fastest. A day on Jupiter is only 10 Earth hours long, and a year is about 12 Earth years. Jupiter is about 500 million miles away from the Sun. Even though it is so far, it is so large that it reflects a lot of light and is one of the brightest objects in the night sky. Jupiter's atmosphere contains many colorful bands and swirls of thick clouds. An especially interesting feature of Jupiter's atmosphere is the Great Red Spot, a giant area of swirling clouds bigger than Earth. When the red spot was first discovered, it was larger than 2 Earths wide. Today, it has shrunk to about 1 Earth size. In the future, it might disappear altogether. I hope that happens after my lifetime because the giant red spot is one of my favorite things to look at in my telescope. Some people have heard that Jupiter is a failed star. But is it? The smallest star to ignite hydrogen fusion is about 1/12 the mass of our sun. Jupiter is about 1/1000th the mass of our own sun. In order for Jupiter to ignite hydrogen fusion, you would have to take Jupiter and add 80 more Jupiters inside of it. So don't think Jupiter is a failed star. It's a really successful planet. All of the outer planets have moons. The astronomer Galileo discovered 4 of Jupiter's moons: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. These 4 moons are Jupiter's largest moons. Io, Ganymede, and Callisto are larger than our own moon. These moons are so massive, if Jupiter was not there, they would be a naked eye object. A mnemonic to help me remember the moons, in their order from closest to furthest away, is I eat green carrots. This stands for Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Since Galileo, more moons have been discovered. As of July 8th, 2023, Jupiter has 92 moons, with astronomers finding more all of the time. The Voyager and Galileo probes sent back photographs of observations of Jupiter's moons that show detailed views of each moon. Jupiter's moons are very different from each other. Io is the 4th largest moon in the solar system and is covered in volcanoes. Over a dozen huge volcanoes are erupting all of the time. So Io's surface is changing from year to year because of the flows of hot material. The sulfur in these flows gives a variety of colors in Io's surface. From space, Io looks like a giant pizza. Europa has an icy crust that has more liquid water underneath its surface than all of the liquid water on Earth. This liquid water is rich in salt and organic materials, including carbon-based compounds. This is everything you need for life, at least life as we know it. I would love to work on a NASA mission that sent a probe to Europa. How cool it'd be if that probe actually found life swimming in the oceans underneath Europa's surface. Ganymede is the largest of Jupiter's moons and about twice the mass of Earth's moon. It is even larger than the planet Mercury. In fact, it is halfway between the size of Mercury and Mars. Like Europa, it has oceans of liquid water underneath its surface. Ganymede's surface is icy and partly covered with craters. Other parts of the surface shows giant grooves in the ice. Callisto also has an icy surface. It is so heavily cratered that no part of the surface is free of craters. It is the second largest Galilean moon and the third largest in the solar system, and orbits Jupiter over 1 million miles away. The second largest planet in the solar system is Saturn, named after the Roman god of plenty and wealth. Saturn is slightly smaller than Jupiter, but including its beautiful rings, it has an overall greater diameter. The Voyager probe showed that Saturn, like Jupiter, has a thick atmosphere made up of mainly hydrogen and helium. Saturn's atmosphere also contains clouds and storms, but they are less dramatic than those of Jupiter. Saturn is the only planet that is less dense than water. Since Saturn is less dense than water, you may think that Saturn would actually float in a bathtub if the bathtub was big enough to put Saturn inside of it, but this is incorrect. Because of how large the bathtub would be, it would have such a great gravitational field that it would actually suck in Saturn underneath the water. So even though Saturn is less dense than water, it would not float. When Galileo first looked at Saturn with a telescope, he could see something was sticking out the sides of it, but he didn't know what it was. A few decades later, another astronomer using a better telescope discovered that Saturn had rings around it. Astronomers later found out that these rings were made up of chunks of ice and rock, each traveling in its own orbit around Saturn. From Earth, it looks as though Saturn only has a few rings, and that they are divided from each other by narrow, dark regions. The Voyager spacecraft discovered that each of these obvious rings were divided into dozens of smaller rings. Saturn's rings are broad and thin, like a compact disc. Do kids these days even know what a CD is anymore? I'm getting so old. Sometimes, these rings are tipped so that the observer can see them at an angle. Occasionally, they are on edge. And then, because they are so thin, astronomers can't see them at all. These rings are extremely wide. They are 175,000 miles wide. If you were to place this planet in the middle of Earth and the Moon, the rings would span 2/3 the distance between us. While these rings are wide, they are extremely thin. Some of these rings can be as thin as 10 meters thick. There's a large gap between the rings that can be seen from Earth. This gap is known as the Cassini division. Even though it looks really thin from Earth-bound telescopes, this gap is almost as wide as the continental United States. This gap is 2,920 miles wide, and Los Angeles, California to New York is 2,782 miles. If you look at all the outer planets with a telescope, you may think that Saturn is the only one with rings. But this is incorrect. In fact, all of the outer planets have rings, just none of them as spectacular as Saturn's glorious rings. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, is larger than our own. In fact, it is the second largest moon in our solar system. Titan was discovered in 1665, but was known as only a point of light until the Voyager probes went by. These probes showed that Titan had an atmosphere so thick that little light could get through it. Years later, NASA and ESA's joint Cassini mission sent the lander Huygens to Titan's surface. Huygens began transmitting a wealth of information back to Cassini for more than 2 hours before impacting the surface of Titan at a velocity of 15 feet per second. A problem in the communications program limited the number of images that Huygens transmitted to Cassini, from about 700 images to 376. Yet it continued to transmit for another 3 hours and 10 minutes, during which it transmitted the view of its surroundings. Huygens appeared to have landed on a surface resembling sand made up of ice grains. Surface pictures showed a flat plain littered with pebbles, as well as evidence of liquid acting on the terrain in the recent past. Subsequent data confirmed the existence of liquid hydrocarbon lakes in the polar regions of Titan, an excellent place for microbial life. 4 other moons of Saturn are over 1,000 kilometers in diameter. They are named Tethys, Iapetus, Dione, and Rhea. There's even a moon called Mimas that looks like... As of July 8, 2023, NASA reports that Saturn has 124 moons, with more being discovered all of the time. The 6th planet from the Sun is Uranus, named after the Greek god Uranus. Although the ice giant Uranus is about 4 times the diameter of Earth, it is still much smaller than Jupiter and Saturn. Uranus is twice as far from the Sun as Saturn, so it is much colder. In fact, due to internal chemistry, Uranus has recorded the lowest temperature of any other planet in the solar system. There have been regions of Uranus that have dipped down to negative 371 degrees Fahrenheit. Uranus looks bluish because of the trace amounts of methane gas in its atmosphere. I would not suggest smelling on Uranus. There's a lot of pressure built up inside of the planet that it does weird things. The pressure breaks up the methane molecules in the air, squeezing the carbon so much that it forms diamonds. It actually rains diamonds on Uranus. There are oceans of liquid diamonds underneath the clouds. I know what planet I want to explore first. In 1781, Uranus became the first planet to be discovered since ancient times. The astronomer William Herschel in England found an object in the sky that did not look like a star. At first, he thought this might be a comet, but other astronomers soon calculated its orbit and realized it was a planet beyond Saturn. The discovery made Herschel famous and started an era of solar exploration. Originally, Herschel named the planet George's Star after King George III. I'm glad this name did not stick. Us Yanks don't like to listen to the crown. Common sense prevailed, and the tradition of naming planets after gods was followed. We got the name Uranus, after the Greek god Thanos. No, wait. Uranus. That's better. In 1986, about 200 years after Herschel's discovery, Voyager 2 arrived at Uranus and sent back our only close-up views of the giant planet. Images from Voyager 2 shows only a few clouds on Uranus. But even with so few clouds, astronomers can calculate that Uranus rotates once every 17 hours. Strangely, Uranus's axis is tilted at an angle of about 98 degrees from vertical. Viewed from Earth, Uranus is rotating from top to bottom instead of from side to side, the way most planets do. Astronomers have theorized that billions of years ago, Uranus was hit by an object that knocked it on its side. Voyager 2 also photographed 5 of Uranus's largest moons, possessing icy, cratered surfaces. These craters showed that the moons have been hit by rocks and other debris. Some of the moons have lava flows on their surfaces, suggesting that materials erupt from inside of each moon. Voyager 2's images revealed 10 moons that had never been seen before. In 1997, astronomers discovered 2 more moons. As of July 8, 2023, Uranus has 27 known moons. Neptune, named after the Roman god of the sea, is even further from the sun than Uranus. In fact, it is 30 times the distance from Earth to the sun. Unlike Uranus's nearly featureless blue atmosphere, Neptune's atmosphere contains visible clouds. The planet Neptune was discovered as a result of mathematical prediction. Uranus was not quite following the orbit astronomers predicted for it. Astronomers hypothesized that this might be due to another unseen planet whose gravity was affecting Uranus's orbit. By 1846, mathematicians from both England and France calculated the orbit of this new planet. The astronomer Johann Galli went out that very night and looked where it was said this new planet would be. He found it and it was within 1 degree from where it was predicted. This new planet was now called Neptune. In 1989, Voyager 2 flew by Neptune, where it photographed the Great Dark Spot. Like the Great Red Spot on Jupiter, the Great Dark Spot is a giant storm about the size of Earth. But the storm did not last for long. Images from the Hubble Space Telescope taken 5 years later showed the Great Dark Spot was gone. Other small spots and regions of clouds on Neptune seem to come and go as well. Neptune has the fastest wind speeds in the entire solar system, where it is measured to be nearly 1,200 miles an hour. Astronomers have discovered 14 moons orbiting Neptune as of July 8, 2023. Neptune's largest moon is Triton. The Voyager photo shows that the region near Triton's south pole is covered with ice caps, and that dark materials erupt underneath. I want to finish this video with this picture. When Voyager 1 was traveling outside of the solar system, it turned its camera around and looked back at Earth. It may not look like much, but this picture is extremely powerful. This tiny pale blue dot is Earth. The great Carl Sagan summed up this picture the best, where he said, "If you look at it, you see a dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you ever heard of. Every human being that has ever lived out their lives. The aggregate of all of our joys and sufferings. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and every forager. Every hero and coward. Every creator and destroyer of civilizations. Every king and every peasant. Every young couple in love. Every hopeful child. Every mother and every father. Every inventor and explorer. Every teacher of morals. Every corrupt politician. Every superstar. Every supreme leader. Every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam." So there you have it. You learned fun facts about our outer solar system. Leave a comment down below on which is your favorite planet and why. Psst, hey, come here. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. If you want to learn more about the inner solar system, click on the video right here. Or if you want to learn more about Jupiter's Icy Moon Explorer mission, click on the video right here. And always remember, have fun with STEM.